These were the volatile scenes during the spring of 2021. Some of England's biggest clubs dared to try to have their cake and eat it by staying in the Premier League and joining the proposed European Super League, and caused what some pundits called the attempted murder of the English game. The plan was to leave the Champions League and form an exclusive competition that kept the big finances bouncing between themselves. The proposal collapsed and the government moved to prevent any English side trying to leave again. The group leading the charge for a European Super League took FIFA and UEFA to court after their initial plan was thwarted. This morning, the European Court of Justice ruled in their favour.
There is big news today, and that news is that football is free. Free from the monopoly of UEFA, free to pursue the best ideas without fear of sanctions.
A22 wants to create the world's most exciting club football competition.
The ruling doesn't affect English clubs and doesn't mean the competition will happen, but organisers are pushing to make it a reality. Spanish giants Barcelona and Real Madrid are still determined to make this league happen. Madrid's president Florentino Perez claimed a huge opportunity was to be grabbed.
From today, the clubs will be the owners of their destiny. The clubs have the right to propose and promote European competitions that modernise our sport and attract fans from all over the world. Today, the Europe of freedoms has triumphed again, and football and its fans have also triumphed.
Some of the larger clubs feel that they deserve a bigger slice of the pie. They also don't like the idea of having to win football matches to qualify for European competition. And the proposals of Super League would allow them to do that. Real Madrid, if they were already in the Super League, could get relegated from La Liga. The same could happen to Liverpool, and they would still qualify for the Super League the following season. So that gives them certainty in terms of revenue. It's very good for those clubs who are would be at the top of Super League. It wouldn't be so good for those clubs further down the pyramids.
We will not try to stop them.
Despite the ruling, UEFA President Alexandra Ceferin wasn't concerned about the threat, sarcastically mocking the attempt to disrupt the traditions of European football.
They can create whatever they want. I hope that they start their fantastic competition as soon as possible with two clubs. I hope they know what they're doing, which I'm not so sure about.
The invention of the Premier League revolutionised English football, but without the involvement of the Premier League's big boys, some European teams still hope the Super League will be their route to the top.
Well, I'm now joined by Niall Cooper, the CEO of Fair Game UK, a coalition of football clubs and fans looking to improve the governance of football. Niall Cooper, what are the chances, in your view, of this Super League actually happening now?
Unfortunately, today, it kind of opened up the possibility. We thought it had been closed 2 years ago with all those protests, and now with this ruling, there is that window of opportunity that we'd all thought was over. That's the big concern. We haven't seen equivocal denials and condemnation of it from the top 6 clubs in England. We've seen kind of indications, but not that we will no longer have a Super League. And that's got to be the concern, that we're going revisiting something that we all thought was dead just 2 years ago.
But would it be so bad? I mean, you know, Real Madrid, for example, said, I know they're a big supporter of it, but European club football will never again be a monopoly, they said. Freedom has triumphed.
I think the thing is, we need to think about it from a domestic level. When you start closing up that trapdoor and you start taking away that opportunity to the smaller clubs to progress up, that's when you start seeing the undermining of the football pyramid, which is sacred, really, particularly in the English game, but also overseas. And that's where I think we're seeing this big problem with what the problem is with the European Super League, and why we saw those fans, those protesters outside at Chelsea and at Arsenal and at Spurs. There was this complete underestimation about what football actually means. And it is about communities, and it is about the fans, and it is about that pyramid. And that's what seems to be completely missed. And I think when you look at those comments from Real Madrid and from Barcelona, they're missing what football really means to so many people in this country and overseas.
But you know, the A22, the group behind the Super League, they've made quite a lot of tweaks to the original proposal. A lot of eye rolls going on. But I mean, for example, the app to stream Super League matches, they say that would attract billions of fans to free services. When you look at the cost of football at the moment to fans, that sounds quite tempting, doesn't it?
It is tempting, but again, you're throwing little carrots and little kind of crumbs towards the fan base to try and stop a repeat of all the kind of issues that are going on. Still doesn't address the big fundamental issue, which is that it's undermining the pyramid and it's undermining the opportunity for the smaller clubs to go through. This basically just takes away the very creme de la creme of Europe, puts them in a different bit, means they are no longer caring so much about their domestic game, which means for clubs who aren't even in that period, that top six, are just completely ignored.
But a lot of European clubs think that they need something like this to compete with the big money of the Premier League.
Though what you're talking about here is when you look at the kind of comments from the European leagues, and we've seen condemnation from the French league, from the German league, and from La Liga, that most of the European leagues don't want this at all. The only two voices that we've seen really openly positive, two clubs from Spain, Real Madrid and Barcelona, they don't represent even La Liga.
But there is a problem, though, isn't there, with the Premier League, isn't there? The price of tickets, you know, a Sky Sports subscription costs £35 a month. I mean, the cost of being a football fan is extortionate, isn't it?
It is quite extortionate, but then you need to think about that that money actually can be used in a much more positive way if it was done properly. And this is one of the things that Fair Game would talk about, is that if you looked at that investment and actually started to put it in the right places, as in the smaller clubs, and start rewarding well-run clubs, then you could see a whole culture. There is an opportunity to help clubs like Bury and Maxfield not to collapse, and all that sort of stuff, actually make the game much more secure and sustainable.
So do you think fans will boycott or protest? I mean, what will happen if this does go ahead?
I'd be really surprised if we didn't see a repeat of the protests from before, because that anger hasn't subsided. And that's where I think that football should be going in that direction. I think fans will be really upset with the idea of the European Super League, and we need to really end it once and for all.
Niall Cooper, thanks very much for joining us.